On July 12, 2022, Kylie Jenner posted an image on Instagram of herself and her boyfriend Travis Scott hugging one another on an airport runway. In between them were two private jets. The caption read, "You want to take mine or yours?" After the photo was taken, she and her boyfriend hopped on board one of the planes and flew from Van Nuys, California to Camarillo, California. The trip took 17 minutes. By car, the distance was just 39 miles, and with traffic, would have taken roughly 45 minutes. To save themselves 28 minutes, she and her boyfriend emitted 1 ton of CO2, about a quarter of what the average person emits in an entire year. The post sparked outrage on social media, and fans accused the couple of being out of touch with what's going on with the climate crisis. But was this just a case of a billionaire brat behaving badly, or do other rich people act like this too? According to the Celebrity Jets Twitter account, which tracks the private flights of celebrities, everyone from Big Sister Kim to Floyd Mayweather, Mark Wahlberg, and Jack Nicklaus have been guilty of recently taking private flights that lasted 40 minutes or less. Aviation enthusiasts are quick to point out that flying only emits about 3.5% of the world's CO2, and that private flights make up only 4% of that. However, that's just because so few people in the world fly. According to the CEO of Boeing, more than 80% of people in the world have never been on a plane. And just 1% of the global population is responsible for half of the emissions associated with flying. Because they carry so few people, private planes are 5 to 14 times more polluting per passenger than commercial planes are, and 50 times more polluting than a train ride. But it gets worse. A study of 20 famous billionaires revealed that their average carbon footprint came in at a whopping 8,190 tons per year, mostly because of their helicopters, yachts, and private planes. Compare that to the average American, who emits 14.4 tons, and the average world citizen, who emits 4.2 tons. Yachts, jets, and helicopters are by far the biggest emitters of the luxury items that the wealthy own. But it's not only their enormous carbon footprint that's the problem, it's the aspirations that the extremely wealthy generate in others. There are lots of people who want to emulate the consumption habits of the super rich, fueled by their extravagant displays of wealth. But you don't have to be a billionaire to have high emissions. According to a 2020 study from the University of Leeds, the wealthiest 10% of the 86 countries they studied consume an average of 20 times more energy than the bottom 10th. This gap mostly comes from transportation, where the wealthy consume 187 times more fuel than the poor. This is because people with lower incomes rarely fly or drive a car. While it is probably self-evident that the wealthy emit more, it's the size of the chasm between rich and poor that is surprising. For example, a 2014 survey by the Department of Transportation in the UK showed that just 15% of UK travelers take 70% of all flights. A 2020 study by the United Nations Environmental Programme said that just 10% of the world's population emits close to half of the world's greenhouse gases. The top 1% account for 15% of emissions, more than twice the bottom 50%. That means that the top 80 million people emit more than the bottom 4 billion. Another way to look at it is that one person from the top 1% emits as much as 100 people from the bottom 50%. The study concludes that if we are to stave off climate change, the top 1% need to cut their emissions by 97%. A 2021 report on carbon emissions and wealth inequality from Oxfam came to 2 conclusions. The first is that we need a luxury tax for private helicopters, planes, and yachts. The second is that we need a wealth tax to curb emissions, reduce inequality, and to pay for climate mitigation and adaptation measures. I can already hear the skeptics groaning that the wealthy would never go for such a thing. But in 2022, 100 millionaires and billionaires signed an open letter asking to be taxed more and presented it to the World Economic Forum in Davos. They also presented an Oxfam report called Taxing Extreme Wealth that gives us an idea where the money to solve climate change could come from. A wealth tax starting at 2% per year for those who have over 5 million, 3% for those with more than 50 million, and 5% for billionaires would generate $2.52 trillion a year. This would be enough to completely transition off fossil fuels to renewable energy and leave $300 billion per year to repair our forests and oceans. A steeper progressive tax of 2%, 5%, and 10% would raise $3.62 trillion a year, meaning we could also address extreme poverty, education, and healthcare. There are several organizations run by the wealthy, including the Patriotic Millionaires, Millionaires for Humanity, and Tax Me Now, that are asking for governments to tax them more. Also, having high marginal tax rates for the wealthy is not unprecedented. This was the norm between 1945 to 1975, when tax rates were as high as 91% for any income over 1.9 million in today's dollars. This was known as the golden age of capitalism and was characterized by high levels of productivity and employment, greater financial stability, and less economic inequality. Compare this to today, where the top marginal tax rate is 37%, and many wealthy people, including billionaires, pay little to nothing in taxes because of loopholes. For example, in 2007 and 2011, Jeff Bezos paid zero in federal taxes, while fellow billionaires Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, George Soros, Michael Bloomberg, and Carl Icahn also paid little or nothing. In addition to a higher marginal tax, there should also be a luxury tax on high-emission vehicles, helicopters, boats, and private planes. One was implemented in 1991, and it levied a 10% tax on cars valued above $30,000 and boats and private planes above $250,000. However, it was repealed just 2 years later because it led to a loss of jobs in the yachting industry as fewer luxury boats were being purchased. So we know it works. A mere 10% tax was enough to cost billions in sales, according to a powerboat dealer named Bob Hummel, who lived through the tax. So what if the tax were raised to 25%, 50%, or even 100% on helicopters, luxury yachts, and private planes, the three biggest emitters from the toy chest of the wealthy? Yes, it could mean the end of luxury yacht industry, and some of the wealthy might be relegated to flying first class. But is having expensive toys and greater convenience for the rich worth the cost of a dying planet for the rest of us? The small island nation of Singapore has one of the highest population densities in the world. So, they put a high tax on vehicles, and a car can cost 4 to 5 times what the same model costs in the US or Australia. This prevents the average person from buying a car and forces them instead to take public transportation, which is paid for by the car and road taxes. It also prevents the traffic and pollution that would arise from everyone owning private vehicles from becoming untenable. The results are that Singapore has one of the best public transportation systems and some of the best maintained roads in the world. And while it has some traffic, it is nowhere near the levels of nearby Jakarta or Bangkok. Canada also recently passed a luxury tax that went into effect on September 1st, 2022. The wealthy already lead such privileged lives. Do we want to allow billionaire brats like Kylie Jenner to continue to get away with killing our planet so that they can shave a few minutes off their travel time? Call your Congressional Representative and tell them we need a luxury tax just like the one Canada just passed. Climate change is big and complex, but by working together, we can solve it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Please visit me at www.palmeroyoung.me for more videos, articles, and infographics.